This is what is calling us out of matter. It's what called the monkeys out of animal organization. It's what calls technology out of the restless hands of the hominids. And it is what is calling all of us toward a kind of fusion with the community, with the psychedelic totality of the species, and with the larger Gaian totality of the planet. This is what it all went for. This is the promise and the redemption of history. Without this redemption, then history becomes the abortion that materialists fear it is. This is why the legitimate path to the transcendental, the linking of the individual with the transcendental through psychedelics, now becomes the most important political work that can be done in the light of the rising awareness of the end of history. Thank you very much. Well, all of you who stayed, the intrepid core, I'll just go through these. I've not had any chance to look at them, and handwriting is also degraded here at the end of the world, so it's a little hard to sort out some of this. What role does an individual psychedelic experience play in the massive changes that you're anticipating? It would seem to me, my model for the psychedelic experience, there have been a number of them. The idea that it mimics madness, that was one idea. That it takes you into the Jungian unconscious, that was one notion. That it somehow illuminates the concepts of Indian yoga or after-death models, such as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. All of these have been tried. My assumption has been a mathematical one. That what psychedelics are about is that mind, under the pressure of evolutionary constraints, turns itself into a threat detection device. And that's how we use it in three-dimensional space, to anticipate threat and to meet it. But that is, as it were, a lower order application of mind, and that in silent darkness, what happens on psychedelics is that the mind unfolds literally into a kind of superspace or a higher dimension in the mathematical sense, because I take seriously the claims made in all times and places for millennia that shamans can locate lost objects, predict weather, see where the game has gone, and predict the outcome of disease situations. In all cases, what is involved is a higher dimensional relationship to the manifold of history. So I think that you all understand that a locked box, if we had a padlocked box here on stage, a locked box is not locked in hyperspace. It has a dimension in hyperspace from which the contents of the locked box are easily removed, taken out, and put back. In our world, this looks like magic. Shamanism is like this. And so, to answer the question, what role does an individual psychedelic experience play in the massive changes anticipated? The role is that the individual gets in on the joke. at this stage in history, to be a shaman is to have seen the end. And if you've seen the end, it's like, taking Anna Karenina and reading the last 5 pages. And then as you make your way through this bewildering morass of material, you do have the faith that it's all going to end up as you discerned. So that's the political act. You see, terror of the future is one of the weapons by which the rationalists are holding everybody in line. Terror of the future can be put out to pasture through psychedelic shamanism. Okay. It seems mushrooms for the masses is not really what you advocate. Mushrooms for the masses doesn't sound like such a terrible idea. I mean, I always equivocate by saying, if your problem is maintaining boundaries, then you probably shouldn't take any psychedelics. But you can't, in a mature civilization, you don't define opportunities based on what will be detrimental to a small minority. Mushrooms for the masses seems to me a fine idea. I just don't see how it can ever come about, because I believe that the society-shaping effects of these things are so powerful that they will never be tolerated. Just to go off on a tangent for a moment, this is why I am an incredibly pessimistic person about getting pot legalized. Because as far as I can tell, the argument now in favor of legalizing cannabis is that it ain't no big deal, so why not legalize it? The problem is it is a big deal. You just have to bake it into some banana bread and you'll find out what a deal it is. So, and if you read the 19th century accounts like Fitzhugh Ludlow, the hashish eater, people like that, it's perfectly clear that it can reach LSD levels of intensity if you eat it. And the question, if pot were judged on its social impact, or its lack of addiction, its lack of detriment to health, it would have been legal a long time ago. But it subtly erodes commitment to dominator values in ways that are absolutely intolerable to dominator institutions. They'll let gays in the military before they'll legalize pot. That's how threatened they are by pot. Well, let's see here. Recently you appeared on talk radio with LA Police Chief Daryl Gates. What was the inside story, and do you feel you were heard by him? Well, yes, I won't give this too much time. I did appear with Daryl Gates on his radio show. Clearly, they're desperate to raise ratings. They'll do almost anything at this point. And Daryl Gates was a pussycat, very easily intimidated by, I make no great claims in this area, but intelligence. He completely folded in the presence of, academic calm, big words, citation, that sort of thing. What is the difference between your vision of the end of history and the Christian belief in a Savior? This is a great question. Well, it's complicated. The way I think of this transcendental object at the end of time is on this level. For purposes of metaphor, it's like those mirrored ball bars that they hang in discos, that spins and sends out scintillations of light all over the walls, ceiling, and floor of the room. The transcendental object at the end of time and I like that image because alchemists used to talk about what they called the scintilla